Hey, I'm Carl Prusa, and today I'm with UFC fighter Josh. Josh, what's going on?
Not much, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem. First question I want to get in with you is, how did you get into mixed martial arts?
Yeah, I've always been a huge fan of the sport, and this is dating back to before the UFC was mainstream. Um, in like '99, 2000, my best friend and I we'd watch the UFC fights on pay-per-view before anyone even really knew what it was, and I've also always been really athletic. I played a lot of sports. I grew up wrestling, and as I got older and became a fan of this, and this is at the time when I was wrestling in high school. I went on to wrestle at a junior college and then wrestle at a 4-year college. I knew I was going to get into it when my wrestling career was wrapped up.
And now, how did you go about finding your first fight? Is that something Team Alpha Male helped you with, or was that long before you were even associated with them?
Yeah. So I'm from Sacramento, California. So I was raised out here, and just I'm just lucky that one of the best teams in the world for the lighter class was in Sacramento. It was established here in my backyard. So I've always been with them. Um, but the way I went about it was there's a friend, and he managed me as well. His name's Tabriz. He actually, he found my got me my first amateur fight, or actually got me my first two amateur fights, and then all my pro fights. He's the one that got me in the UFC and managed me in the UFC for a while up until my last fight.
Nice. And when you first came up, did you have any crazy fight stories? Some fighters have been telling me that, like, their first fight, they didn't know who they were going to fight until they showed up. There was no, like, weigh-ins, no blood work. Did you have any crazy or wild experiences coming up?
Um, I guess, yeah, quite a bit of them. I'd say my first amateur fight. You know, MMA in general. I feel like if you don't have a team behind you, or a manager, or someone that's kind of a mentor, someone that's looking out for you, it can be just a shady a shady business, and that's just the fight business, I guess you could say. But yeah, so my first amateur fight, what had happened is, I guess the promoter, whoever it was at the time, they were saying they have this person that's pretty green. It was their first MMA fight because it was my first MMA fight. But then come to find out, I think they were supposed to be like, it was one of their, you know, top up and comers, and I was the same. So it doesn't matter, I was the same thing, but I guess they had kickboxing bouts or Muay Thai bouts, something like that. And they were just trying to kind of set me up, but they didn't know who I was either, the promoter. But they just knew I came from a good team. And so my first fight, I fought in this bar in the Bay Area. I fought in a bar, and they put a cage in there. It was actually a pretty cool venue. But then this guy was from American Kickboxing Academy. So all of the major guys came to watch him fight, to fight me. It was like Cain Velasquez was there. It was like John Fitch, I think Josh Koscheck, Phil Baroni. Um, Man, there's so much more. I can't remember right now off the top of my head, but like the big name guys from there, and they were all coming to watch their teammate, this guy that was supposed to, beat me up. And then I went in there, and you know, I I knocked him out in front of all of them really bad. And walking out to the crowd, he had a big fan. It was like a bike, not a, I think they were like a biker gang, like a bunch of his buddies, and they were just saying, like, how they were gonna, they were just talking a bunch of shit to me on the way out, and I was like, yeah, whatever, man, watch what's gonna happen. And then afterwards, since I beat their friend, and then they were, I guess there was like a rumor they were gonna like find me and try to jump me in the parking lot, and there's a ton of them, but I also came with a huge crowd, so I wasn't too worried about that. So I'd say that was just kind of the way things started out. And then everything else there's always hiccups and just kind of weird things that happen with fights. But I'd say a memorable one for sure was, I fought for King of the Cage. This is when I fought a guy. I fought Rocky Johnson. So his big claim to fame was he beat Benson Henderson, and he had like 40 plus fights or something like that. But anyways, like when I was warming up in the staging area, it was the worst thing ever. I swear, like the tiles from the roof, it was one of those drop down ceilings. It was like missing all like the panels up there. It had like hanging live wires. There was leaks in the ceiling, so like all the carpet was like sopping wet and just nasty. And then there was like rocks and I swear like tacks and screws in there. And we're like trying to like find areas to warm up, and it was at a casino, like some, it was at some casino, but we were in like the tent, and then they had us in this back like staging area, which was just super creepy and and just definitely unforgettable. And then the funny thing with that was, even when I was warming up, there was just some drunk dude that he came walking in the back smoking a cigarette, and my jiu-jitsu coach was, he was super pissed at him, so I ended up yelling at the guy and doing all this type of stuff to where the guy ended up putting out the cigarette butt on his tongue. And it was so funny. But it was just that's one of the, I'd say, just a kind of a crazy fight story in itself too.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I couldn't imagine. You just have to be careful not to get hurt in the dressing room before the fight even starts.
Yeah, right. And it's like all of them, it's like the UFC is obviously the best of the best. Like they have everything set up for us. I've warmed up, where we're like warming up outside. Some places don't have mats, or like when I'm talking about that with like screws and wet carpet and wires hanging everywhere. It's been quite the journey, I could say.
And now you mentioned you got scored the big knockout in your first amateur fight. You just have some filthy knockouts. I mean, just wonderful performances. Is that something that you look when you get into a fight? Have you had it instilled in you? You're looking for the finish.
Yeah, that's everything, man. Yeah, I'm definitely trying to finish the fight, and I'll take it any way it comes. But it's like I love boxing. I feel like I do have a lot of power in my hands. And at the end of the day, we're in the entertainment business. I know what the fans want to see, but I do come from a wrestling background. I wrestled in college and did really well, and I feel like I could fight a certain way, but maybe it wouldn't have got me to where I'm at as fast as it did, and it wouldn't be as entertaining for the fans. But yeah, every strike I throw, I have bad intentions behind it, and I'm trying to finish the fight. Best case scenario, I walk out there and throw my first punch and it lands and knocks him out, and that's it. I can go home and make some cash and not be injured or anything like that. But we're also fighting the top guys in the world, so it's a little more difficult than that sometimes.
Now, I'm sure you've been asked about this hundreds of times, but the Michael Johnson fight, when you connected that shot, did you know it was done? Did you know right there, as soon as your glove hit his face, it's over?
Yeah, no, I knew. I feel like I don't know, I kind of relate it to baseball. It's like, or golf. If you have that swing or stroke down, and when you just connect and it's so fluid, not even throwing it with, or swinging it, or throwing a punch, or with all your might, when you hit it fluidly, you just know. It's like some of those guys that, McGuire, Sammy Sosa, all those guys back in the day, like the big hitters in baseball, like they would hit it and they would just start like trotting around the base because they know it's out. And that's the same way I felt with several of my punches, where I could definitely follow up and do unnecessary damage to my opponent, but I also want them to go home without any injuries. I always hope that my opponent and I can, at the end of the day, we're entertaining the fans, and we're fighting for, we're literally fighting for our life and just our living and well-being. And I want myself and my opponent to both go home at the end of the day with no injuries, and because we both have families and things like that. And yeah, so it's that's always my thought and hope. But we are in the hurt business, and but yeah, I knew when I connected against Johnson, it was over. So I think it's so much sweeter just to kind of like walk off instead of jumping on someone. Same thing that happened with Lamas. Um, Same thing or I had to finish up or follow up with some shots on Bektik. But yeah, as soon as the ref hops in there, then I'll be out of there.
Speaking of Bektic, this past summer you got a fight in Sacramento. How cool was it to be on the same card as a bunch of your other Team Alpha Male guys, especially, Uriah Faber coming back against Ricky Simon? And how awesome was it to all celebrate together after you guys winning?
Oh, yeah, it was amazing, man. It was just awesome to, again, get a fight in my hometown and just have such a big crowd. And yeah, it's always great to have teammates or multiple teammates on the same card. It's because we're all in training camp together, and then just the atmosphere in the room is high, just like the energy, and we're all helping each other get prepared and get ready for a big night. And we had a good showing, even though I wish every single one of us would have won. We still had four out of the 6 big wins. Yeah, it was a fun night, and I got a fight in Sacramento at Golden One Center when the UFC came here in 2016, and that was Uriah's retirement fight. So that was also like, that was a really special night, and then to be a part of something like that, and then of course, to have Uriah come out of retirement. But then I was joking with him, and I was like, "Oh man, now you're kind of stealing my shine."
A guy like Uriah Faber, how awesome is it to be able to learn from a guy like that? I mean, is he truly, I guess, one of the most talented, one of the most influential individuals in all of MMA?
Yeah, he's just he's so knowledgeable when it comes to all aspects of MMA. He's a Hall of Famer for a reason, and he's just he's a great person to have kind of in your corner, mentoring you, because he was a pioneer. He started this, without him, who knows if we'd even have the lighter weights. And he truly just gives back to the team, the community, and you won't see a lot of guys do the things that he does. Like he'll go, say, travel to China to corner someone in a fight. He'll come back, no sleep at all. Then the guy will drive 2-3 hours to somewhere to corner someone that's an amateur, as long as they asked him to, and then he'll be up the next morning in practice teaching. It's like he leads by example, and yeah, he is truly one of a kind.
That's wonderful. So now you've won 4 of your last 5 fights, and you're on a 2-fight win streak when you've absolutely looked just sensational. What is going on with you right now? Are you just composed, relaxed, confident, having fun? What is it out there?
No, I'm ready. Like I want to get back and fight, and even after I fought in Sacramento, that was back in July already. It's like I wanted to get another fight in November or December, but there just wasn't any available fights or whatnot, is what the UFC was telling me. And then I finally got one just because it was the only option, and then I got injured, and so I'm good now. I was back to practice, feeling great, and then we got hit with this pandemic, and I'm just kind of sidelined now, just waiting to kind of see what happens with all of this, because before it was like an hourly thing, which of, and we were all just kind of wondering what was going on, and then now it's kind of just things change daily, weekly. It's the unknown. I just don't know what's going to happen, but I hope everything can somewhat get cleared up and everything's back up and running by the latest, I'd say June. And then because we have gyms closed, no one's practicing, it's like I can do my part and keep up with my nutrition and diet, and get little workouts like running or hitting the bag in my garage, and hit some mitts with my boxing coach, doing things like that. But it's not a training camp. It's not as intense, because we're not in everything. We're not doing wrestling, jiu-jitsu. We're not sparring. It is difficult. So I really just hope, this will all kind of pass, and not too many more people will be, affected by it.
Now, last question for you, Josh. What caliber of an opponent are you expecting going forward here? Or do you want like a top 5 guy? Do you have anybody in mind that you would like to fight?
Yeah, that I've been saying all along. I want to fight opponents that's going to get me closer to fighting for the title. So if it was up to me, I'd fight the champion. But I know that's not going to happen. So, I was really hoping to fight someone in the top 3. That was my, I was campaigning to fight Aldo before he dropped down to, bantamweight, and then you had, Brian Ortega. He's up there. He was like the number 1 contender. I don't know what he is now. So I wanted to fight Aldo or Ortega, but who knows what's going to happen. But moving forward, really anyone, top 5, anyone that's going to get me closer to fighting for the title.
All right, Josh. Well, man, I wish you the best of luck always, and I really look forward to seeing you fight again in the future. Thanks so much for coming on here and speaking with us today, man.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me on. Anytime.